The following is a special presentation of XCW.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to XCW Inception. My name is Jaxsin Law.
I'm Festus Davis.
And we are back with another banger of a show. This one we're not going to tear apart as much because there was actually a lot better going on in this show.
A lot of good stuff in this show.
It's the first ever televised Xtreme King. Obviously a much shorter card because they were all wanting to get to that Battle Royal at the end, the Xtreme King Battle Royal. As we've come to know as a yearly tradition, winner gets a shot at the XCW champion. Back then, at the biggest show of the year, Greed. Greed now goes on to be one of the core fours these days, but it was the big show back then. It was the one. Show would start out with Psychor versus Chris Jones for the Power Championship. Blade also opened the show announcing a new Power Generation member.
Yeah, and Chris Jones.
Yeah.
Joining New Power and putting his foot in that fight.
Yep, we got a peep show. Eternal Darkness versus Psycho Circus Clown. Kurt Acid taking on Hazard. Fletch versus Biohazard, or as I labeled it, Bio Roddy. And then the Xtreme King Battle Royal. Obviously, we are going to get to all of those evaluations. Festus, what do you think
let's see, if you put the card in front of me, no sight unseen. I probably would have said Fletch versus Biohazard would be match of the night.
See, I had Psychor and Chris Jones. Just because Psychor and Chris Jones are a stark difference in style.
Yeah, oh gosh. Yes.
They're two that could clash, but at the same time, two that could gel.
A worthy pick as well.
But we'll find out if those were the cases come the end of the night. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to send it to commercial break, and when we come back, we are going to tear the ever-loving hell of these matches apart, give you our evaluations, and then, and only then, do we bring the big man himself in.
Let's go. Can't stop me, can't stop me. 궤도를 다 뒤집어. Get ready, dreaming area. Get ready, dreaming area. Can't stop me. 나를 이끈 마음은 떠나 자유롭게 가자 far away. 나나나나. Here's an area. 나나나나. Here's an area.
And raise your cups, we're back, ladies and gentlemen. We got Xtreme King evaluations to get to.
Yeah, get through this fairly stacked card.
It is a decently stacked card. You got a European title match, a Power Championship match, Power Championship opening the show, and much like Fletch talked about in the last show, structuring it with one big one to open it, one that may be a little down, something to bring it back up before you get to the main event. Obviously, the main event's technically the Xtreme King Battle Royal, but in my opinion, the actual main event would be Fletch versus Biohazard, because no one goes into the Battle Royal matches expecting a match. It's more of a, okay, who's in it?
I said it's hard to rate a Battle Royal of any sort.
I didn't put a
like
rating
a
down
lot
for
of,
it.
you know, it's, you know, punches, kicks, throw guy over the top rope.
Yeah,
you know,
I didn't really put a rating down for the Battle Royal at the end. But Psychor versus Chris Jones saw Psychor capturing his first championship in XCW very quickly in the grand scheme of things. I know we had a bit of a break from the debut to the Over the Edge show, so there were a few months or a few weeks in between there. But in the grand scheme of things, Psychor came in really quick, winning a championship.
like we've talked before, he was presented as a, heavy striker, big bad, and this proves,
I talked about before how no DQ matches kind of cover the back of the bad wrestling. There wasn't much bad wrestling in this match. Everything that they were doing looked pretty good despite the no DQ stipulation. And it started with an attack, which was a bit of a different angle. We hadn't really seen that before. I mean, Hazard had started with an attack the show before, but seeing Chris Jones do it was a bit different. Jones did seem kind of reckless with a couple of the weapon shots, kind of just weapon, But that comes with the inexperience back then of how to properly, safely use a weapon. And, hey, we're just going to hit the shit out of each other with weapons. I rather enjoyed this match.
Yeah. I actually gave it a 3-star. It's a.
I had it at a 2-star, but a 3-star is a fair rating.
Yeah, I just thought it was a nice hardcore match, and the weapon shots. I thought for the majority of them they actually looked really, really nice. Were they snug? Were they just hitting each other with stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah. But
did it look
I kind of like. I thought it looked really good, and Psychor looking like the Beast.
Yep. And obviously, we would see what the Beast would become in the hardcore division later down the line. We got a peep show, which didn't really do a whole hell of a lot. It did give us the opportunity.
It was entertaining because when he announced that his guest was Psycho Circus Clown, Psycho knows one word. He doesn't talk. Really? How's he going to do an interview? But Fletch, the consummate professional, found a way. Nod your head, shake your head, and I'll let I'll ask yes or no questions.
And the Xtreme King really showed the working relationship between XCW and NAW, which was Hazard's company. Obviously, Hazard at this point won half of the tag team champions. Kind of starting to do a little bit more single stuff as a part of Blackout Inc. The Peep Show had Psycho Circus Clown as the guest, which brings us to our second match on the card. 2 masked characters going one-on-one. A lot of times when you see 2 masked characters, you expect comedy, you expect the shenanigery. It wasn't much shenanigans going on. The match was actually really back and forth and kind of hard-hitting.
It was, it was. I had a standard mask match, but not from a comedy standpoint.
Yeah.
Just, and we've talked about the mask characters in the early days were stars.
Yeah.
They were not the job guys. They weren't the enhancements. They were legitimate stars. And so, you see that match on a card in 2020, you're like, okay, it's going to be a comedy match. It would. But, at this time, it was just a good match. I mean, I didn't give it the greatest star rating.
What was your star rating?
I only gave it a 1 star.
I also had it at a 1 star. I mean, I didn't have many notes for this match. The only note I really wrote down was Eternal Darkness winning with that nasty looking tombstone on the porch. Like
that was pretty.
That was
I liked it.
surprising to see because you didn't really see many moves like that then. A lot more just throwing risk at the wall, suplexes, grappling, groundwork. Eternal Darkness busted out a tombstone. Like, you don't see that very often. I had it at a 1. It was a very decent match. It wasn't as gimmicky as I had anticipated it being. Obviously, looking through the more modern lens, knowing what the masked characters would become. Then we had Kurt Acid taking on Hazard. And I'm going to let you take the lead on this one because I actually didn't get a chance to write any notes down for this one.
I don't, I rated it at a good star rating. And it's probably just my overall feeling. But I don't have many notes. Simply because it was a type of match where, something would happen. I'd be afraid to look down and make a note,
Don't
make a
miss
note
the next
and
move.
miss the next spot, I thought it was a really, really good match. And the one night, humble beginnings to a long running feud, and two guys that would form the foundation.
Obviously, I'm going to agree with your star rating here. What'd you have it rated as?
3.25.
So three and a quarter. Very solid star rating given who was in the match. You sit here and you look at the card. You see Kurt Acid, you see Hazard. It's gonna be good. Like, especially the competitors you got nowadays. If you put Kurt Acid in there with Hazard, well, it'd be an easy win for Hazard. But I'm sorry.
Too soon.
Too soon.
Way too soon.
But Kurt Acid and Hazard, both in their last real runs, were doing good things out there, really putting on stuff you'd want to watch. Speaking of putting on stuff you want to watch, Fletch again coming out with a banger match. You had Fletch versus Biohazard for the European title.
These two just don't.
They don't disappoint.
For me, they don't disappoint. Every match we have watched with these, those two in, it's just, solid, good work.
I mean, my first note was Biohazard and Fletch with another classic.
Yep.
It was an overall really solid match. I enjoyed watching the two go back and forth. They busted out a couple different things that we didn't get to see the first few times they went around. Obviously, maybe that's because porch, different environment, able to be a little more structured in the matches because you're not wobbling around trying to.
And also just virtue of they knew they were going to
get to a point
was going
to
have some more. It's like you don't want. Not to be crude about it, but you don't want to blow your wad in that first match. You want to leave them wanting more.
I don't have any. Anyway, you would see Fletch come out of this, the brand new European champion, the champion of the European continent, which we didn't have an audience in. Which would explain why this would be the final. The coup de grace for the European title. We've heard Fletch talk about getting to the point where he would win the title so they could retire it, so the Power Championship could slide in and take that place. And obviously, Fletch walking out the match with the championship, exactly what needed to happen, when it needed to happen at one of the biggest shows of the year. Fletch actually winning his first championship in XCW since losing the XCW title at the very first show televised. So, I had that match rated at a 2.5, 3 stars.
I had a 3. Yeah, solid 3. Good match. The only even critique was the ref bumps.
Yeah,
I thought let's say bumping him twice, and
one of them who's naughty and nice,
and one of them being that you saw who hit you. Okay, you might be not loopy. But that's the only complaint. That's a tiny in the whole scheme of this.
And
so good.
Normally we have a match rating for the last match, but with it being the Battle Royal, I didn't give it a star rating. it's really hard to rate a battle royal when there's
I did, but I kept
anything
that in
going
mind.
on in a battle royal. I did have a note here that I ended up scratching out with. The Rumble starts with 1 and 2 because I'd never watched this Xtreme King before.
Yeah, this was different than you'd see. It's just a standard battle royal. Everyone came out at the same time.
Yeah, you watch Xtreme King these days, and it's Royal Rumble style, where countdown, entrant, countdown, entrant, countdown, entrant. This was done battle royal style, hence the name Xtreme King Battle Royal, where all the stars came out at once, and then we got a battle royal over the top of the gate or the bare wall of the porch, whatever you want to call it, over the top rope. Over the top rope. That was the one thing, and I'll ask my question about this later when we have the boss man in the hot seat. But we would see Chris Jones eliminate Hazard to win the first televised Xtreme King, which kind of teases into that New Power Generation versus Blackout Inc.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, Blackout Inc. would go against the lone wolf Kurt Acid earlier in the show, but we actually got that faction versus faction at the very end of the Xtreme King. Chris Jones
is just ramping up.
Yep, Chris Jones going.
Show. We're
getting there.
More.
Chris Jones would now go on to Greed to face DTC in the main event for the XCW Championship. What do you got to say about this battle royal?
As far as the match, quick eliminations there at the beginning. It was one of those type of battle royals where you
in and
out. One, not a big roster. Two, that porch isn't the biggest.
So looks like
had to thin it out, it's
like 8 by 13,
quick so people could work. The only other thing I'd want to say is Azrael Knight being in it.
Yeah.
I never got to meet the guy, but anybody who's been with the company the past couple of years, knows the story, knows his stories. I found it interesting that commentary, it's the first time we'd seen her, and commentary doesn't give him a name. On that, flagger, the name thing comes across. I was like, oh, it's yeah. And but on commentary, they never actually named him, and actually made a point. It's like, we don't know who this guy is, and
if everybody would have done what they were supposed to do when they walked out, you even hear the commentator say everybody's going to say their name when they walk out. The only one to do it was Benji. Do your job.
Yeah.
But it was cool seeing the faction tease towards the end there.
Yeah, very, very.
If I had to give it a star rating, it'd be a 1.5.
I gave it a 2, and like you said, it's hard to star rate a battle royal.
Yep, but
it just is by by virtue of the match.
What'd you learn?
Well, shoot, just a very mundane thing is that the first Xtreme King was not the normal staggered entrance, which we're used to.
Right.
It was just a standard battle royal. That kind of didn't know that. I learned something.
That's about what I'd agree with, because I didn't know that was the thing.
Yeah. As far as overall, that's yeah.
Well, we were talking about how it's hard to rate a battle royal. You know what isn't hard? Asking the boss man the hard-hitting questions. And that
he always gives us good answers. Because he knows he was there.
And he had to be there. If he wasn't there, it wouldn't have happened.
Well, true.
You imagine an Eternal Darkness running this show? Ugh. Everybody would have been a black eye paint around their eyes. I'd shake your hand, but you have blood on your hand. I don't know where it's been. You're wrestling Dark Skull today. Anyway, we're going to ask the boss the hard-hitting questions right after this commercial break.
follow the dagger. Cut off the ones who disobey. Follow the leader into the fever. One by one until we break. Smile for the camera. Follow the dagger. Cut off the ones who disobey. Follow the leader into the fever. One by one until we break.
Welcome to the hot seat about Xtreme King 04, first televised Xtreme King, boss man. Not many questions this time around. It was a shorter show, so there's not as many questions for me to ask
Hey,
you.
that's fine. We can go down the whole list, and I
Same
can
here.
give you a little bit about
Yeah,
it.
same here. I
So-
didn't have I didn't have a question written down.
Was there a reason that Jones lost the title to Psychor because he was winning the Rumble,
Yes.
and you knew what position you were putting him into?
Yes.
Okay.
The original plan was for Chris Jones and Corruption to go into a small feud that would lead into Xtreme King. The whole point of that was to, Chris could lose easily to Corruption because of Corruption's size. And still be able to protect Chris by having the last person eliminated in Xtreme King be Hazard. So it was kind of offsetting. He would lose to a big guy like Corruption, where he would lose that championship, but later in the show would win the ultimate opportunity to go to Greed and face off for the championship. He beat the biggest guy in the Xtreme King Battle Royal to go on to face the smallest guy for the championship. So he had already upped that mountain. Now all he got to do is knock off the champion, and he would have a whole new mountain to climb when it would be announced that at Agreed it would be Chris Jones and DTC in the very first ever TLC match. So of course we're going to get there as time goes, but so when things didn't work out with Corruption, Corruption, Ratitude, MILF Hunter, they're all a pretty tight-knit group. Kind of follow suit. If one goes, then the others start to kind of drop off. And with MILF Hunter, he was actively in the Army at the time, so he was getting ready to go on a summer tour of Afghanistan. So we knew that in advance, and that's why he was kind of written out, why the European title was transitioned away from him, and then eventually retired with myself. And Biohazard we knew that we weren't really going to be able to tell any more stories with MILF Hunter in the immediate future. You wouldn't see him again until later on, late in the season. He did a whole summer tour. So, and then, of course, we talked about Ratitude, who was stepping out of in-ring position. And, two of his buddies gone means that, you're going to see a little less of Corruption. So, unfortunately, those things didn't fall into place. And Psychor was hot at the time. Had, in my opinion, probably the best match of Over the Edge. So, it was an easy pivot to get Psychor into the position to face Chris Jones.
All right.
There's actually a couple of things about that match that a lot of people don't even realize. So if you have to watch some of these things very closely. There's a specific spot where Chris is laying next to the entrance, and he has the plastic snowman.
Mm-hmm. Smoke buddy.
Psychor comes out of the entrance set, and Chris pops the smoke buddy up and hits Psychor in the face. Well, Psychor has a block of wood. So when it hits him in the face, his natural progression is to drop the piece of wood. If you watch very closely, the snowman hits Psychor, the wood hits Chris in the face all at the same time. Another little tidbit about that match, there's actually a spot where Chris Jones is underneath the ring, and yes, I'm going to call it a ring, and it was over the top rail, not rope. But during their match, Chris Jones had crawled underneath the ring, pulled the lattice work out and everything underneath the ring. You know, actually the lattice was built like that so that we could get underneath there and store things. It was by design. It's by design. Yep. There's a spot where Psychore's in the ring with the stop sign. Chris is underneath, and you even see Chris try to pop up like trash can lids to try to hit Psychore, who's above. Chris has no other choice at this point but to climb out. That's the only way in and out of underneath the ring. And you see Psychore
smoked with that stop sign.
It legitimately knocked Chris out.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah.
This was the match I was talking about. Someone got knocked out.
He smoked him with that thing. And I
legitimately. And then Psychore had to go down and out of the ring and kind of snap Chris out of it to continue the match.
Wow.
Props to Jones for keep going. A lot of people these days, you get knocked out in a match, well, game over. We'll do it later. Obviously, Blade opened the show announcing Chris Jones as New Power Generation. Was this really the first show that started the faction build?
Yes. And that was one of the things, when you're looking at, okay, Chris Jones wins Xtreme King. Now he's a member of MPG. And you're World Champions VK2. You're making for a marquee match at Greed.
And he eliminated Blackout Inc. to win.
Yeah, and not only that, there's the underbelly of that. Yeah. And you're also, when you look at it that way, you have MPG VK2 as the final two, or going against each other for the title, and you're really being able to tell that story. What's next is Cynical trying to get his comeuppance. Chris beat Cynical for that power title, and now things are going to come back full circle for the World Championship, for the XCW title, and that's where we're headed. So, when you put that into perspective, it's a pretty big deal. He knocks off DTC easily in the TLC match, becomes the XCW champion. Cynical now sets his sights on him, and we are fully on our way to SummerMania 2.
Well, we'll see all of that on the next episode of Inception when we talk about Greed 04. But before we get to that point, before we get out of here, obviously we normally do the final thoughts, final match ratings. I do have one more question.
We run it down. I got stuff for this show all the way around.
I do have another question. The Xtreme King Battle Royal, why was it not the format we see today?
A reason for that is, if you notice, not even Psychore was a part of this Xtreme King Battle Royal, and a lot of it is just timing. It's who we had available. Of course, when you have MILF Hunter on an overseas tour, you have Corruption, who's not fulfilling his duties on the roster. And then you've got guys like Cyrus, Rubber Band Man, and Convict, who are another kind of package deal, kind of disappear out of the XCW limelight. You get put into this kind of position where you have a less roster. We knew that we had Azrael coming in to debut, which was going to give us another number. But ultimately, it was designed this way so that it didn't seem like it was even less. Because I feel like had we did the standard Xtreme King style of guys coming in one at a time, it's going to feel like even less participants in the match. Whereas when you put 7-8 guys into the match to start, then it feels like there's more people in it than there actually is. And this is the only Xtreme King period with this format. 2003 Xtreme King seen standard Xtreme King style, which would see Donnie Dr. Love Dark come out on top.
Coming 2024, we're bringing this.
No, we're not.
No one's Iron Manning this year. We're going to do it Battle Royal style.
No, we're not.
So, speaking of not, we don't see a lot of Eternal Darkness or Psycho Circus Clown. I'm pretty sure Psycho Circus Clown's dead. Didn't he get killed nowadays? Did he come back?
He retired.
And they retired.
Yeah.
Well, I know Eternal Darkness is dead.
Yeah, another thing, it's pretty sad looking back on Xtreme King 2004 to see that both Azrael and Kurt Acid are two of the participants, 7 or 8 participants in this match are passed. So
it's like, whoa.
Did you see anything special coming out of the two masked characters going one-on-one?
I think it was a filler for a short card when you already have you're going to build a short card because of your battle royal. So this was just a spot filler. It probably wasn't needed because of the time that Chris and Psychor went. It didn't feel like Chris and Psychor went that long because the match was so good. But it needed something. It needed something in between. You couldn't just transition straight from that to the European title. So, we had to put something in there.
And that's fair. That's fair. Now,
and it was also kind of a reintroduction to Psycho. And then, of course, it gave an opportunity for Psycho and Hazard to have their first interaction, which you'll find out more about later.
So, going back to the battle royal, had you done the Rumble style that we see Xtreme King be now, would it have been one of those where when someone got eliminated, they went and threw on the mask and the gear?
Likely, yeah.
Okay. Been there.
You're going to see that more coming up. So.
Was Chris always going to win Xtreme King? Yeah. You never had anyone else even penciled in?
Even when he almost got fired?
Correct.
You strapped the rocket to him and we're like, okay.
Absolutely. Pretty much the rain show was the stamp of approval for Chris.
Yeah.
Well, he made it through almost getting fired, so he's the Cena of XCW. He made it through almost getting fired, and then...
And look at the things he's done.
Why are you wearing that?
It's old school.
That's
For shame. And we got Kurt Acid versus Hazard.
Just kind of a teasing of what's to come, and also kind of winding down Kurt Acid, because coming up at Greed would be... it's tough to say now, but the demise of Kurt Acid, and you'll find out more once we talk about that episode.
Well, then moving right along, we had you and Biohazard in what would become the last European Championship match. You didn't say anything about it getting retired that day on screen, but was there plans for like a retirement ceremony of it? Were you just going to be like, I'm not the champion anymore?
No, I just wanted it to quietly go away, and I just felt like it made the most sense for it to be me rather than putting the championship on somebody else who really deserved it and really earned the opportunity to be called a champion. I didn't want to take that moment away from them, so it was just an easier way to retire that championship by it being on myself.
All right, so what I'm hearing is Flesh is going to get into this real intense story with someone, and then surprise, the European title makes a comeback. He's just going to walk out on screen with it.
Actually, if you watch Collision Course 2013, the European title does make a comeback.
Oh, well, I'm sure in a few years we'll get there. Should this,
should still be, years for sure.
Be going.
Yes.
We probably need a new host. I'm old.
You can still read. You just gotta update the prescription.
I'm just saying,
You better not be saying you're gonna be meeting Acid and Azrael. I don't want to have to plan another tribute show. Jesus.
I hope that you guys are still watching this break.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're gonna get here into final thoughts real quick. What would you overall rate this show?
Shoot. 3. Call 3.
And you, boss man?
I'm going to say 3.5. This really built up everything that you need to know going forward. VK2, MPG, they all got to stand out. Psycorp became an immediate star. And you got 2 championship matches that were absolute bangers on the card. And even the treat of Hazard and Kurt Acid. So overall, solid show.
I kind of agree on the 3-star rating that Festus gave it. It was another one of those shows that had the decent structure, the decent flow to it. I feel like having the gap of the masked character really tied everything together. In the battle royal, of course, it's a battle royal. It's not going to be anything.
You also noticed that Eternal Darkness and Psycho Circus Cloud went second. So now I've kind of started to figure out that
structure.
Yeah.
Well, we'll figure out if that structure continues when we move on to the next episode of Inception, where we cover the next show after Xtreme King. go on and go back and watch Xtreme King 2004. Tell us your ratings in the comments. Tell us if you agree, disagree, or if you have any questions for the boss, put them in the comments section. And maybe we'll do a recap episode down the line answering some of the comment section's questions. But for everyone here, that's been Festus, the boss. This has been XCW Inception. Thank you all so much for watching.